Hello, I'm Aaron, the Dungeon Master Dad, and welcome to the 5th installment of the Adventures of Logan and Reagan. I would like to do a shout out to my 4 subscribers. 2 of them, my sister and a friend, an old friend. So 2 of them I know, and 2 that I don't. I assume one of them is based on the nice comments that you put. Gopher Tort 38. It's really nice to know that there are people who are actually finding this interesting. Keep me going. And yes, I do plan to take my kids through many of the most classic Greyhawk modules. So, now that the party consisting of Logan, Reagan, and 5 others, 4 NPCs that we created specifically for this campaign, and one who was a character from Temple of Elemental Evil from the module and from the village of Hamlet. Now this party has defeated the villains in the moat house near the village of Hamlet. It is on to the greater part of the module, greater in size, not size and magnitude, not quality. So they make their way to the village of Nulb, 1 day's ride north of Hamlet. Whereas Hamlet is a nice village full of nice people with the occasional evil spy, Nulb is pretty much a buccaneer town where just about anybody there will cut your throat as easily as they cut your purse. So at this time, having leveled up after defeating the evil cleric Lareth in the moat house, Logan and Reagan are now 4th level, Elmo is 5th, and the other characters, Bingo, Monty, Morgan, and Shrek are 3rd. So, upon arriving in the town of Nulb, the party goes to the tavern where Lareth told them that they could meet the proprietor of the tavern, who is a recruiter for the Temple of Elemental Evil. They might be able to get in there and infiltrate the temple. Logan, first thing that happens to him as they go into this tavern, he catches a barmaid picking his pocket. And of course, in stopping her from picking his pocket, he almost gets into a fight with her boyfriend, who happens to be the very proprietor that he's trying to ingratiate himself with. So they basically back out of that place and come to the conclusion, we're going to try this again a little later, maybe when he's forgotten this incident. So they're going to do a little bit more exploring around Nulb and see what's going on. Now, just like in the village of Hamlet, I have fleshed out some of the various encounters in the village of Nulb using the walkthrough that I found online for the Temple of Elemental Evil video game. So, the party is going to try to buy a house in Nulb to use as a safe house, place that they can rest and lock up their supplies in between expeditions to the temple. They find a house that is available for sale. The title of that house is held by a fisherman, and upon asking him if they can buy the house, he basically sends them on a little quest. Apparently there's a giant gar, a freshwater fish. Like, I used the stats for a great white shark because I couldn't find stats for a giant gar in the monster manual, but I figured it was just basically a freshwater version of a shark for game purposes. So this large fish has been tormenting the fishermen of the area, and he will be eternally grateful if the party were to take care of this large, mean fish for him, and then he would be willing to part with the house for a very small sum of money. So the party rents a couple of rowboats. They may have been in 3. It's a long time ago now, so whether it was 2 or 3, when I think 3, I might just be remembering a scene from Lord of the Rings, which I'm sure you've all seen. But there was at least 2 boats, might have been 3. Anyway, they're going down the river in 3 boats, and they have a couple of encounters. The first is with lizard men. They get attacked by lizard men and have a fight, which they win pretty easily. Then a little bit further down the river, they encounter giant frogs. Of course, Logan freaks out. Logan, the character. Logan, the player, is role-playing himself freaking out because he thought it would be funny that his character now has this fear of giant frogs. Anyway, they fight the frogs. Logan kills several of them himself, and now he has overcome his fear of giant frogs. Then they come upon the giant gar, who, just like in the movie, does whatever he can to upend the boats, to knock the people into the water. They don't have any real danger of drowning because the water is only about 5 feet deep. So even though they're in heavy armor, they're okay. But once they're in the water, the giant gar can attack. So they fight this giant fish in the water with their swords and axes and so forth, and end up killing this giant fish. A couple of them get some really nasty bites, but they survive. So they make their way back to the village of Nulb. They take ownership of their little safe house. And at this point they decide, since the idea of this house is to have a place to lock up their stuff, they need to buy some nice sturdy locks to put on the door. So they decide to go to the local blacksmith to see if he can fashion some padlocks for them. Well, it turns out the blacksmith is a spy, but not an evil spy like the ones in the village of Hamlet. The blacksmith is, in this village full of evil people, is a spy for the good guys. His name is Otis, and he is a Lord Knight of Valuna and a 10th level ranger. And it would be very difficult for the players to actually find out that Otis is all of these things, except for one little thing. He happens to be Elmo's brother. So, of course, he immediately recognizes his brother upon them coming into the blacksmith shop, and Elmo vouches for the party, for Logan and Reagan, and tells Otis of their adventures at the moat house, and that the information they have leading to the theory that the Temple of Elemental Evil is coming back up into power and has been taking prisoners, likely for human sacrifices. Logan and Reagan are, of course, looking for missing elf nobles, and Otis himself is concerned about the fact that Prince Thrommel of Feriundi, who was supposed to marry the Princess of Valuna, went missing just weeks before the marriage was supposed to unite the two kingdoms. So the Temple of Elemental Evil now seems to be their next goal. The party informs Otis of their plan to infiltrate the temple. And so Otis joins in with them. So now they have a 10th level ranger who is basically the party's leader from this time forward for some time. He is their Obi-Wan. Now, Otis is not alone here in the city of Nulb. He has a couple of contacts. And by a couple, I mean two. There is an herb shop called Mother Scrang's Herb Shop. And it is run by an old woman named Mother Scrang and her daughter, Heruda, I think is how you pronounce the name. Well, it turns out that these two women are wearing grease paint to make themselves look older, so that basically you have Heruda looking like she's 60 years old and Mother Scrang looking like she's 80 or 90. In fact, Mother Scrang is really Canoness Yade, the leader of the Church of St. Cuthbert from Hamlet, who supposedly the leader of that church had been on sabbatical when they were in Hamlet. Well, here's where she really was, and she's only 34 years old. Her supposed daughter is actually an elf, a fighter thief named Murphles, and of course once she takes off the grease paint, Murphles looks like she's about 20, even though she's probably closer to 120. Now in the module it says that Murphles is a fighter thief level 2/2, second level fighter, second level thief. But remember that the module was first edition. And in first edition D&D, when you had a multi-class character, first off, you could only do multi-class if you were a demi-human, an elf, a dwarf, and then of course there were limitations as to which combinations you could be. Now in third edition, you can be any combination of classes. You just, every time you gain a level, you decide what class to gain a level in. So whereas in first edition, a second level thief, second level fighter was a second level character and basically averaged their bonuses for those two classes. In third edition, a second level fighter, second level thief would be a fourth level character. So whenever I am converting and I have a multi-class character like this, what I do is I add together the experience points it would take to be to be the character of the level that they would be in first edition, and well, I do a mathematical calculation to determine what their third edition levels are. So by this calculation, Murphles ends up being just a first level fighter, first level thief. So she's only a second level character, which is what she was basically before. But now in third edition, she's going to, every time she gains a level, she's going to alternate between fighter and thief, fighter and thief. So by the time that she is 9th level, she'll be a 5th level fighter, 4th level thief. And actually that's where we are in the game right now, where we're at the point where we're about to go after the final boss of Temple of Elemental Evil, but I'll be telling you about that in a few months when we get to that. So and of course, when I say thief in first edition, I mean rogue in third edition. So fighter, rogue, first level, second level character. Okay. So now we have 9 party members. We have a 10th level ranger. We have a 6th level cleric. We have a second level multi-class character who is first level in both of her things. We have a 4th level ranger, Logan, a 4th level sorceress, Reagan, a 5th level ranger, Elmo, and we have a 3rd level fighter, third level cleric, third level rogue, and a third level wizard. So having attained fourth level as a ranger, Logan also at this time acquires his animal companion. So he gets a nice big wolf to accompany them into the dungeon and names him Fang. And he gets very attached to this wolf. And now the party, with the addition of these extra characters, is powerful enough to take on one of the mini quests from the village of Hamlet that they had, and I had not mentioned this before. They knew about this mini quest. Turgeon, the priest of St. Cuthbert, who's actually Canoness Yaday's assistant, had asked them to go to Emydry Meadows, which is where the battle against the forces of the temple had been fought 11 years earlier. Apparently he had lost a holy symbol during the battle, and he wanted to recover it. It was family heirloom. It's buried. He had, at some point during the battle when he thought he might be killed, he had buried it under a rock, and then he ended up surviving the battle. And later on, when he went back to retrieve it, he found that a hill giant had taken up residence in the meadows. So he's never been able to go back and get this heirloom. So the party is going to go and do that for them. They figure with the extra power that they have now that they have Otis, they should be able to defeat a hill giant, have a little fun there, which they do. So they defeat the hill giant, and again, it is something that they would not have been able to do without the extra firepower, so to speak, of Otis's sword. So being 10th level in a party that is averaging 4th, Otis is a pretty formidable character. So upon defeating this hill giant, they make their way back to Nulb. They go once again to the tavern and make contact with the proprietor of the tavern, get to talking to him, do a little bit of role playing. They talk about the Battle of Emydry Meadows. What do you think of the Battle of Emydry Meadows? You know about the history. My father served in the Battle of Emydry Meadows. Of course, he was working for the side that got defeated. All made up lies, but sort of giving the idea to the proprietor that they might be sympathetic to the cause of the temple. And, they are a mercenary party looking for work. And when the proprietor basically says, I have some contacts, the temple's sort of back in business, and they're looking for some new soldiers and guards. And the party indicates that they are very interested in this. So this proprietor, he is recruiting for the Earth Temple. So he tells them his name, he gives them a note signed by him, and he says, take this to the temple, and when you get there, you're going to see to the north of the temple, I don't have the map handy right now, but I think it is the northeast corner of the compound. Hopefully it's not the northwest corner, but in any case, in one of the corners on the north side of the compound, there's a tower, a watchtower. He says, approach the watchtower with your hands out, no weapons in hand, and when you're challenged, tell them I sent you and that you're coming to be recruited into the Earth Temple. Show them the note, and somebody there will take you down to the leader of the Earth Temple, and you can get a job. So they take that pass, and that's the plan. They're going to join up with the Earth Temple, and that will be the beginning of their plan to infiltrate the Temple of Elemental Evil, to play off the Temple factions one against the other, to weaken them from within, and take advantage of the fact that they are fighting amongst themselves, and the beginning of their plan to totally destroy the temple. And that is where I'll leave you until next week, when we will actually enter the temple. And until then, remember, don't kill your kids' characters. That's what the NPCs are for.